Very different taste.
It's what we call a naturally processed coffee. And traditionally, naturally processed coffees for a long time were called buni. It was not a desirable thing and they were sold off cheap. When we first started roasting this in 2018, people thought I was crazy. They're like, who's gonna drink these bunis in Kenya?
So what's that change from pizza to coffee?
I sold the business in 2016. I realized I was tired, I was burnt out. It was hard.
We don't talk about the bad side of business.
I think what I've learned is you make a mistake, it's okay. It's okay to backtrack. Learn from it and move on. Lose a bit of money, gonna make less money. Who cares? Life is too short. Today we have over 250 hospitality customers across the world.
Ritesh Doshi sells coffee. Before coffee, he was helping transform food delivery in Nairobi with Naked Pizza. Before that, he was navigating the world of investment banking and private equity across 3 continents. And he has questions. Why should African coffee travel halfway around the world before it's considered valuable? What are your plans for when you get burnout? Because you're building a business and it's growing. How does that get sustained?
My fear, when you become too institutional, then the institution becomes bureaucratic. You don't change fast enough.
Tell me something that's not on your CV.
I'm obsessed with...
Ritesh, karibu to the Nitpicker podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I'm a coffee addict, so before we move on, please tell me what's in front of me because I'm dying to take a sip. The smells are fantastic.
What is in front of you are some of Kenya's most incredible coffees.
Uh-huh.
The 2 right in front of you are the 2 original coffees that Spring Valley's been roasting since 2009. And the 2 in front of me, one is actually Kikaboni, which is the first ever certified organic coffee from the country. And the second is the first ever coffee that, our naturals coffee that was roasted in Kenya.
Wow. And what's in front of me?
One is the gourmet, which we're going to be renaming soon, which is the first coffee Spring Valley ever roasted, which is our medium roast coffee.
That's one.
And that is our most popular coffee.
Yes.
And the second is the espresso, which we are also going to be renaming soon, which is our house dark roast coffee.
Why are you renaming them?
You know, the names that are there were names that we inherited as a business and that we've inherited as a coffee industry. I'm going back to a lot of the people that kind of led and that came in front of us, right? People like Dormans and Java that have really laid the groundwork for specialty coffee in the country. Those are names that we inherited, and we want to rename, pay homage to where we came from. So we will be renaming gourmet to Halisi. You're the first person I'm telling that to. Halisi, which means original, because that was the first coffee roasted. And espresso will be renamed to Masara, which was the name of the old hunt and the estate that Spring Valley was built on in 1905, which is when coffee was first planted in this area.
So this Spring Valley area was a coffee estate?
The wider Spring Valley area. From here, if you go up towards Lower Kabete, up towards Lower Kabete, Upper Kabete, this entire estate was coffee.
And who was Masara? You said he was...
It was no. They named the hunt and the lodge Masara. It was an old British Army general, and they renamed it and they named it Masara. That's the name they gave it. So let's pay homage to where we came from.
Sawa, then I'd like to taste Halisi.
Okay, well shall we walk around and give it a try? So what you're tasting today are kind of some of the most incredible coffees that are found in Kenya. These are 4 of the 8 we currently have on offer. Okay. We'll have 16 over the course of this year. So the first one is our house dark roast. This is the one time where it's socially acceptable to slurp. Okay. So what you want to do is take a little bit in the spoon. It's a little bit deeper than a soup spoon, and you want to make a sound if you can. And the reason you do that is because it spreads all around your mouth. You have different taste receptacles around your mouth, and you can taste different things.
Clearly, I can't slurp.
That's okay.
Okay.
I've learned over time. Then you can rinse it in that between every.
What should I be tasting in terms of from a flavor?
So when we do this technically, we are looking for the quality of the coffee, what flavor notes are really popping. We're looking for defects. We often don't find any because we've done that quality control before. But we're looking for anything that could really pop out. That's really bright. We're looking at acidity. So when you think about when you salivate. What is that? And there's good acidity, and then there can be too much acidity. You're looking for, are you tasting fruits? Are you tasting more caramelized flavors like chocolate or nuts? So it's really just, and there's no wrong or right? It's like wine. There's no wrong or right. It's incredibly, I'll taste strawberry, you'll taste blueberry. They're not that different. So you can do the same thing with this one. So you just want to lean in and just take a little bit.
This is mine. This one I like, yeah?
Well, try, and then you'll see. You might be surprised as you go through.
Coffee.
You can taste it, right? And as you come through,
So that one's less sharp.
Yeah, so that's a darker roast.
Yes.
So that's going to be a little bit stronger. And then you'll come in here. This is an interesting coffee. That's Kenya's first certified organic coffee.
Certified organic. So would there be a difference in the taste?
There shouldn't be a material difference in taste, but it's really just the processing methods on the farm.
Tastes more fruity.
Yeah, and then wait till you try the last one. And that's from the Kenyan side of Mount Elgon. We proudly call it Elgon, but it's on the Kenyan side of Mount Elgon.
Very different tastes.
All very different. And that's an incredibly fruity coffee. It's a very fruit-forward coffee.
Yeah.
It's what we call a naturally processed coffee. And traditionally, naturally processed coffees for a long time were called buni. And literally, it was not a desirable thing. And they were sold off cheap. And even on the exchange, the coffee exchange on the auction, they're still listed as an NH, which is not a great moniker. But you have some incredible natural coffees, which are now desired. When we first started roasting this in 2018, people thought I was crazy. They're like, who's going to drink these bunis in Kenya? Because the Japanese love them, the Northern Europeans love them, but people are like, who's going to drink this here? And it's actually one of our best-selling coffees now.
Wow, it's sweeter. It's fruity.
It's fruit forward. Without looking at it, what flavors are you tasting? You can take another stab at it, and then.
Mango. Orange, more on the citric fruit.
So this year's season, you'll see here that we are getting a lot of strawberry, honey, and pineapple. What's interesting, pineapple and mango on a fruit spectrum are not actually that different. So it's just interesting what you think. This coffee 2 years ago was very pineapple forward. This year it's a lot more strawberry forward from a technical tasting perspective. There's no wrong or right. It's always subjective.
Wow. Cool. All right. So let me now get coffee into my cup.
Which one would you like? Your favorite, or you gonna try something different?
I'm gonna do mbuni today. Let me try it. Ritesh, you've told us something that stuck with me. You know that 3 people pushed you: a cousin, a father-in-law, an uncle. 3 other people who saw something in you that you hadn't seen first. What did they see before you ever did, as you entered into this business journey?
Interesting question. I don't know if they saw something that I didn't see, or if they pushed me out of my comfort zone, because the safe path would have been, go to a good school in Nairobi, go to a great university, go and get a job in finance, right? You have a very predefined career path, coming out of the early 2000s, which was the relatively easy option. It's a nice, easy, comfortable, cushy life. But I think it was the constant encouragement over time, I think, from my dad from a very young age to say, no matter what you do, if you're working with somebody, there's always going to be a ceiling, which may or may not be true, but it was the planting of that seed very early on. I think, from an uncle, both on my wife's side and on my side, that were just like, take the risk, right? Take the risk. What's the worst that can happen? We're here to kind of support you through it. If you need someone to talk to, we've built things, we've had failures, we've had successes, and to talk through that. And then my father-in-law was an early entrepreneur, and they always said, hey, when you're ready, take the leap, and kind of just always offer that support and encouragement.
What was that first leap you took?
Really interesting. I think the first proper leap, I have a false start in 2006. I bought a small business in the UK, which it was healthcare. It was a pharmaceutical HR business. I had no passion for pharmacy. I had no passion for HR, but I really wanted to run a business. And I quickly realized I couldn't run a business that I didn't care about. So it was great. I bought the business, grew it, sold it less than a year later. That was good, but I never felt it. So I always say that was my false start. But the first real kind of entrepreneurial thing that I did was starting Naked Pizza when I moved back to Nairobi in 2012.
I remember that. I remember I never ended up buying it, but I remember the name and me doing a double take. Like, what, it was in Westlands, right?
Yeah.
Was that Woodvale Grove?
Yeah.
Doing a double take, like, say, what now? What was behind the name?
I didn't pick the name. So I realized, that I was just about to turn 31. And I said, if I don't do something entrepreneurial now, then I never will. I'd come home to visit my parents and my in-laws. I wasn't living in Kenya at the time. I couldn't get a pizza delivered. It took an hour I was obsessed with pizza. I love it as a product. And I'm like, well, I can't get it delivered. It takes an hour from this place.
What year was this?
This was in 2011.
Which are the pizzas around?
There was like Pizza Inn, there was Debonairs, you know, and so there were people that were in the pizza business, and again, they introduced all of us as Kenyans to pizza in that sense, but they weren't really delivery businesses. And everywhere else in the world that I've lived, places I've traveled to, places I've gone to work, whether it's in Europe, whether it's in North America, whether it's in Asia or the Middle East, you can get a pizza delivered in 30 minutes. And someone's like, can't happen here. Nairobi traffic is bad. Things are terrible. You can't. When you say to somebody with a mindset who's entrepreneur that you can't do it, I'm like, aha, but you can. And
hold my beer. Let me try and fix this.
Yeah, but I realized, okay, I see the opportunity. I was home, but I know nothing about pizza. I know nothing about doing business in Kenya because I'd left in 1998 to go to university. So I think for me it was why naked pizza. So I scoured the earth for, well, let's work with a great brand. But at that time, none of the big brands wanted to come here, right? All the big brands you see that are in town today,
Domino's and which is the other big brand?
Pizza Hut,
Pizza Hut. That's
you know, Papa John's now. All these brands, I went and spoke to not all of them, but many of them. And none of them wanted to. They're like, we're not. Literally, it was that blanket statement of we're never coming to Africa, right? And that's okay. Then I found this small, at the time, relatively no-name brand called Naked Pizza, which started in New Orleans. They'd opened in Dubai, and I reached out to them. I read an article about them, and I reached out to them, and I'm first like, hey, I'd love to do this thing and take it to Kenya, and I said take it to Nairobi, and the first response was, where's Nairobi? So I'm like, interesting, but I'm like, they know something about the business that I don't know, and I know something about the place that they don't know. So it was, in all intents and purposes, a franchise, but very quickly things changed for them at a corporate level. So as much as we had their branding and their name, we were really left to fend for ourselves. So as much as it was a franchise in name, we built that business as a complete startup.
So then what's the point of using a Naked Pizza as a franchise? Do they give you recipes?
Initially they did, and then things changed and unraveled in their business, so it no longer exists. But so they recipes, training, and we got a lot of that support early on, and then things changed for them. So then we stopped getting that very soon. In fact, around the time we were opening. So that's okay, learning experience, but we learned a lot along. We got a lot of support and help along the way.
Did you have to pay a franchise fee?
We do, yeah. So with a lot of franchise, you pay an upfront fee and then you pay a percentage of royalties, and that's just how it's structured legally, and there's agreements in place, and that's what we had to do. With hindsight, a guy who's been a mentor to me, he's no longer here, Kevin Ashley, who started Java. I met Kevin by chance. I was introduced to him by a mutual friend. And the first thing he said, Ritesh, why are you doing a franchise? You're a smart guy. You've come home to Kenya. You could have done it yourself. But at that point, we were so far down the line, and then the branding was done, everything was done. So we're like, you know what? We're in for a penny, in for a pound, and we started.
And how did it take?
We moved back in January 2012. We thought, I'm like bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. We're gonna come here. We're gonna open in 6 months. We're gonna build 10 stores in Nairobi. We're gonna build 30 stores in the region. We bought into the whole East Africa as a region dream. It took 11 months to build the first store because everything cost more than we anticipated. A lot of the things in supply chain didn't exist. We had to build a lot of our own supply chain for things that weren't in place. It cost a lot more because of duties and taxes and a quick changing business environment. So it took 11 months. Literally took triple what we thought it would cost to set it up. So that was an interesting challenge. So we opened 11 months later in November 2012.
And all this time you're just burning through capital.
Mm-hmm.
And when you say supply chain, what would the supply chain look like for a pizza business?
So again,
like just dough and tomatoes?
Yes, theoretically, yes.
Yeah.
But because the premise behind it, I know you're a bit of a health freak like I am. It was a 10 grain base, and many of those were old ancient grains. Some of them are not available here. So we were bringing those in, right? Things like teff, amaranth, spelt, some of which are regionally available, but all of those are not available here. So because it was supply chain on wheat, on the flour. It was because franchises have regulations. It was requirements on bringing in a specific grade of like tomato sauce, there were certain things we couldn't import, like cheese. And we spent a long time with our friends at Brown's, really formulating the right cheese for pizza for this market. And there was just a lot of trial and error, and they were super patient with us, and we've become very good friends over the last decade about just figuring out what that is and what's the right formulation of that product based on the milk that we have available here. So there was a lot of product. It wasn't just like setting up a pizza place in, let's say, the global north. It's like, here's a franchise. They give you the playbook. You go and open. You're up and running in 3 weeks. You're up and running. It's not that easy. Here, it's like, we need to figure this out. Construction takes longer. Oh, well, the oven's coming in. Okay, but the oven got stuck at the port. Like it's just all these things that just, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. And from doors opening to doors closing, how long was that?
So we opened November 2012,
Yeah.
our first store. And then about a year and a half later, we brought in the first food truck of any kind into Kenya. When it came in, they didn't understand what it was. So we're like, hey, let us help you write the best legislation, because cities like Minneapolis had really grown around the food truck culture. So we took some of the best in class legislation, gave it to the government at the time, and said, hey, this is how food trucks can work. They literally when this thing arrived, they didn't understand what it was. They're like, is it a truck? Is it a big oven? And they just didn't understand. They're like, just remove it from the port because it's occupying space here. So that was the first food truck of any kind,
Yes.
but the first pizza truck here. And we sold the business in 2016 to Pizza Hut. So Pizza Hut bought our business, took over our stores, took over our food truck, took over our teams. There are still people that are at Pizza Hut today that had started with us as junior pizza makers, that are store managers, area managers. And it's been amazing to see people grow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's that change from pizza to coffee? How did that happen?
Completely by accident. I sold the business in 2016. It was kind of a good 4 and a bit year journey. I enjoyed the product. I enjoyed being an entrepreneur, but it also has its ups and downs. I realized that as much as I love pizza as a consumer, it's a different way of engaging customers. As much as you love pizza, you love coffee, but you still have a coffee every day. No matter how much you love pizza, you're not going to have a pizza every day. So on average, your average pizza consumer is visiting you 2, maybe 2.5 times a month. So it's a very different kind of engagement cycle, right? And for me, when I sold the business, and there was a lot of reasons for selling the business, but as I sold the business, it was like, well, I wanted to take a step back and think about what I wanted to do. I wanted to really, because in that business, we were importing a lot of stuff. I'm like, hold on, how do we take something that is here, that we are proud of, that we can take to the world? And I went through this journey of, the plan was to take 7 months off. I took 7 months off, and I'm like, that was the plan. Sold in May. I'm like, I'll figure it out. Let's start in January the following year. And I realized I was tired. I was burnt out. It was hard. And I think that's the other side of being an entrepreneur, that, it's not the glory. It's not the press. People don't see that. And I think that was a challenge. And then I just realized I couldn't find anything that I really, really felt like I really want to do this. So I went on a bunch of journeys about just thinking about what I wanted to do, what I didn't want to do. I went on a lot of self-reflection. I went on a silence meditation. I went on some just real deep thinking courses, went on some leadership courses, just thinking about what it is that was important to me. So I created a framework around what don't I want to do. So my no's became very clear. And that filtered out a lot of them. I'm like, I don't want to be in an extractive industry. I don't want to be in a manufacturing industry that's polluting. There was certain, at the time before we had this wonderful expressway, I'm like, I don't want to spend 2 hours of my life commuting. I'm just not interested. I'm like, I want to be able to do what I do within, a certain geographical space, because I want to be able to run in the morning. I want to be able to walk my dogs in the evening. Those are the things that were important to me.
Ritesh, when you're talking about burnout, I just want to go back to that before we talk about that, how you walked through it, is how do you know you're burnt out? There's in this culture, there's something in our culture when we don't talk about the bad side of business. Everyone wants to see the, as someone called it, the thrilled to share or excited to announce, or I'm humbled and honored to, the LinkedIn post that we like to see, the good parts.
Yeah.
But it's the bad parts that no one wants to talk about. What do you want to share about that led to that burnout?
But it's interesting. I wouldn't even say it was burnout. I just realized I was exhausted, right? And I wasn't having fun. And there's a very good friend of mine, and he's a well-known entrepreneur. And we were sitting together as a group, and he said to me one day, he's like, I just have a question for you. What do you value more, your money or your time? And that question for me unlocked. It was this unlock of, actually, I value my time more. And I realized I wasn't having fun anymore. So I'm like, I'm not having fun. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna lose a bit of money, gonna make less money. Who cares? Life is too short, right? I'm not even 35. Like, now's the time. So for me, it was, I just realized, he's like, you just don't look like you're having fun anymore. You're not enjoying it. And it was that rhetorical question that was for me to reflect on around, what do you value more? And I'm so grateful that he asked me. And I'm so fortunate that I'm surrounded by other incredible people around me that ask hard questions, that we have these conversations around, the stuff that people don't want to talk about, right? People don't like. People are like, what did you do for 20 months? Like they're like, oh my god, like were you depressed? Were you not happy? And I'm like, and the truth is usually right after you sold the business, I remember so vividly. I was sitting in a restaurant with the same friend, and somebody walked up to me and goes, there's two friends, not friends, they're friends with each other. One guy goes, hey, I heard you sold and you made a ton of money. And one guy goes, I heard you sold and you went bankrupt. And I said, it's really interesting how the Nairobi, and I said, the truth is somewhere in the middle. But the point is, it doesn't matter. And everybody has an opinion, right? And like I said, everybody shares what they want to share. And people don't get to that point of vulnerability. And that's okay. And I understand why. Because people say hurtful things and people have an opinion. And that's fine. But I think I've been so lucky to be surrounded by other like-minded people that are growth-oriented, future-oriented, that really encourage and hold each other up.
So that 7 months extended beyond the 7 months now when you're doing this reflection?
It became another 12 months. So I'm like, oh yeah, I'll finish off 2016. I'm like, it's okay, 2017, we're ready to go. And then 2017, I'm like, just couldn't find anything there's nothing I was getting excited about. Like, there was just nothing.
So clearly you didn't lose your shirt when you sold the business. Otherwise,
No, I didn't lose it, but I was very fortunate. I don't have kids. Yeah. So I don't have those obligations. Yeah. My wife is super supportive. So she said, take the time to figure out what you want to do. And I'm super lucky to have a partner. Otherwise, people would be like, don't get a job. Like, I'm not compromising my lifestyle. We're not moving back to being a single income household, right? And so I was very lucky. I was in a fortunate place where I didn't have to worry too much about kind of the day to day, which was hard. So yeah, I didn't lose the shirt off my back. I also didn't come out, I'm not driving some Range Rover and wearing a Rolex. Like it was I was very lucky to have that time. But by the end of it, I was beginning to get itchy feet. And then I'd swear, the funny thing is what I'd sworn off is like, I'm not going to do hospitality again. I'm like, I was tired of like difficult customers. I'm like, I don't want to do the hospitality thing. So that's why I had like blocked all this stuff. And then that's why it's funny I ended up in coffee, because I'm like, and so I looked at manufacturing. I looked at consulting. Like a bunch of people like, can be a consultant. I'm like, I can't. I'm like, that's just not me. Nothing wrong with it. That's just, I'm not wired that way. And I think I struggled to find something I could get excited about. And the good thing is I was a regular customer at what was then called Spring Valley Artisan Coffee, because as you know, it's not very far from here, not very far from my house. So I was there every day with my dogs.
Where exactly is it?
It's at the Spring Valley Shopping Center, yes. Literally on Lower Kabete Road, at the beginning of Lower Kabete Road. And I was a regular customer for many, many years. Even when I was running Spring Valley, it was my local neighborhood coffee shop. Yeah. And it was very much if you knew, you knew. If you lived in like Spring Valley or Loresho or Cuna, you knew. But it wasn't like this, it wasn't a Java, it wasn't an art cafe. So I was a regular customer, and that's kind of, you asked me earlier like about coffee, and that's why I just came to really appreciate coffee as I would say, as an enthusiastic amateur. I knew nothing about it technically.
So you walk into this shop, you're regularly going into this shop. Yeah. How does that translate to, I'm here to have another cup of coffee, or give me a medium-sized coffee, to becoming the owner? How does that happen?
My wife laughs. She always says, I'm like a drug dealer. I bought my own supply. She's like, you're getting high off your own supply. I know you would love that. Yes. But no, so I was very glad. I got to know the guys that it's kind of started the business. And, they, at that point in time, wanted to focus on something else. Weren't necessarily sure if they wanted to be in Kenya. And for me, it was like, hey, I literally didn't want to lose my supply. All jokes aside, I'm like, where am I going to go every day? So we had a conversation. We'd previously spoken, right? I'm like, hey, do you want to invest or whatever? And they're like, no, we're happy running it as it is. And, over time, we got to know each other. We became friends. They're still good friends of mine. They don't live in Kenya anymore, but they're good friends. We still chat a lot. They've very much been on this journey the entire time. And we still have a picture of them up in the wall of the cafe, because it's really important. It's really important to remember where we came from. And we always build on the shoulders of giants. And I think we often forget that. But so they had a change in kind of their family dynamics, what they wanted to do. And they had to focus on other things. So there was an opportunity to buy the business, and I did.
And you grew it. So what's that like? So now you're clear. You don't want extractive, you don't want manufacturing, you don't want to be on Mombasa Road. And then you stumble upon coffee, which is not manufacturing, but it's food processing. Yeah. It's hospitality to a small thing.
Well, yeah. So initially, I'm like, I don't want to be in the cafe business. I'm like, we're going to shut the cafe down. We're going to focus on roasting coffee and taking it to the world. We have this amazing product that's proudly Kenyan. Let's take it to the world. But there was already a cafe, and there was a loyal base. I was one of the customers. Exactly. We kept it open. And then we opened a second location, because the previous owners had committed to it, at the village market. And that's where the brand really exploded. So they'd committed, but they hadn't opened yet. So I opened that cafe after taking over. And that's where people really got to know the brand. Because unless you lived or worked in this area, that was a if you knew, if you know, you know. And even till today, we only have a small sign card about this big that says Spring Valley Coffee and people can't find it. And that's okay. Because it's very much a if you know, you know. And that's the OG Spring Valley.
Wow.
So there's no big sign, there's nothing. And Village was our first cafe that we committed to, so we opened it. And that's when you're like, oh my God, there's amazing coffee available in Kenya. So that's literally where we're like, hold on, maybe we're on something. I'm like, I don't want to be in the food business,
yes.
But actually we love coffee. How do we make incredible coffee available to Kenyans? But the thesis of why the business and why it was interesting to me is in November 2017, I remember so vividly, I was in the US, I was in Brooklyn. I will not name the coffee roaster. But I saw a bag of coffee. It was 8 ounces, which is 227 grams, weird number. But I saw it and it was $22.50 was the price of the bag of coffee, which is fine. And Kenyan coffee prices are public, so you can check. So I called a buddy of mine here and I'm like, hey, do me a favor. Can you just log on to can you get the auction report and find out what that coffee fetched? Because it had the name of the estate. So he checked. Farmer got less than 9% of the value of that product.
9%.
Less than 9. And I'm like, okay, well, here's the problem. All of that means the rest of that value addition is happening somewhere in the supply chain or in the global north. And the argument was you need to roast close to the customer. The coffee, specialty coffee, it can only be done this way, in places like London and New York and Copenhagen and Berlin and Tokyo. And I'm like, no, but there's a place that I know, not that I owned it, I was a customer. I'm like, my local neighborhood coffee shop is really, really good. Because I used to always buy their bags and gift them. I'm like, there is a product which is really good. So that was the impetus. And I went to that coffee shop and then I went on this leadership course for 6 days, which kind of reshaped some of my thinking in the US. And that the course in the US. And when I came back is when then those conversations shifted from being a customer to kind of ending up acquiring the business.
So this coffee shop in Spring Valley was just the front.
The coffee shop was at the front?
The main business.
The roastery was at the back. So literally the roastery was about a room this size and it's still there. And we've actually now opened it up. We've converted it into seating. So the roastery was at the back. The coffee shop was at the front. And it was that way from 2018 until November 2022. We only moved here in November 2022 to where we are today, to our new roastery, just because we were literally bursting at the seams.
Who was buying this coffee before? Because, I'd not heard of them. So I'm talking about the ones before. Because today then what you've done is a really good job on the retail front. Your route to market, getting in front of getting it to us through the supermarket shelves. But before that, who was buying?
But we weren't in supermarkets until COVID. I refused to list in supermarkets until COVID happened. So specialty coffee, which in the coffee world means like your most premium coffees, they score it 0 to 100 traditionally. 80 and above is considered specialty. So we operate at the premium end of the market. So I'm like, no, you want premium coffee, you come get it from us. So originally, you'd only buy it in our cafes. And then we had a couple of hospitality customers. Our first Spring Valley's original customer, and they're still our customer today, 16 years later, is the Tribe Hotel and the Tribe and the Trademark Group. So they were using our coffee in their hotels. And there were a few others. So I bought the business. We had 3 hospitality customers. So hotels, restaurants, cafes that would use our coffee the same way they might, have bought from kind of the more traditional roasters. Today, we have over 250 hospitality customers across the world, most of them in Kenya, a few more widely in East Africa, in Tanzania and Zanzibar, in Uganda, and then some internationally. So that is one part of our business. But you're gonna laugh, we don't have a sales team. We don't do output. So you ask how we get to market?
Yeah.
We say the product speaks for itself. So we actually, we don't pay for paid media. We get asked all the time. We will not pay for media. We won't pay for that type of marketing. We're like, the product should be the marketing. It should be by word of mouth. People should come in and experience our product. They should come in if they like it and they have great hospitalities. We think about 2 things. The business is built on 4 pillars for us. One of them is do the right thing. And that's in every, that means you don't have to have a rule book this thick. That's everybody down to the person collecting the coffee, to the person making the coffee, to the person selling to somebody, is just always do the right thing. The second is make incredible coffee. So if the coffee speaks for itself, then we don't just spend, hundreds, thousands, or tens of thousands of shillings, hundreds of thousands of shillings on marketing, because if you like the product, you'll come back. Mouth. And then the third thing is delight everyone. It's not delight the customer. And we're very intentional about that, because delighting everyone is actually, if you feel amazing, you're not going to remember, was that cup as good as it was yesterday? But you don't remember how the person made you. When you walk in and they're like, hi, Carol. Oh, I know that you like gourmet and I know you like it black, right? Or Koi wants it with 2 sugars. And that's how we're going to make it for her. People remember how you make them feel. So people come because of the coffee, they will come back because of the hospitality. And I think marrying those two things for us was super important.
So how did you pivot then into restaurants? Because now you're big on, and those are very hospitality driven.
So we're not, I mean, we're a collection of coffee shops. We have 10 cafes now in Nairobi. We have one in London. But they're coffee shops. We literally do not serve hot food. There's a selection of six to nine, maybe 10 pastries. We do not bake any of them, proudly. We work with incredible artisans who supply some of those things, whether they're our croissants, whether they're our biscotti, whether they're our energy bites.
And I'm at Safari Link.
So Safari Link is the only one that we serve food at, and that is the only one that we do
at Wilson
Airport. Yeah. Because it's an airport and it's kind of one of the needs of the airline that we service passengers, but also their pilots. But coffee obviously fuels a lot of pilots, fuels a lot. So, I mean, coffee and pastries outsells everything else. Food is a small part of the offering. It is the only place that we have a hot kitchen, and we're very intentional. We don't want, in fact, I was at Safari Link earlier today, just actually tasting our new menu. But I love food. I'm a foodie, but part of it is also I'm vegetarian. So we don't serve meat at any of our cafes except at Wilson Airport, because again, we wanted to be inclusive. We wanted to be respectful of kind of the needs of the airline, its pilots and its guests. But we donate 100% of meat sales to two charities, to a food charity and to KSPCA. We will not, as a business, we will not profit from meat sales because of the huge environmental impact and the animal rights that it comes with. I am not comfortable profiting from that.
So, that's a great segue to, there's this quotation by a lady called Claire Johnson. She's a former chief operating officer of the online payment company Stripe. And she says that when something is requested of you, you need to listen out for the quiet no. And what I'm hearing from you is that for you, the no's are not so quiet. They've become, I guess, over time, quite clear what you will and will not do. How has that worked for you, Ritesh, in a world that has taught us that keep as many doors open because you don't know which one will end up yielding a result?
I think it's become easier with age. I think it's become easier with experience. But I think it also helps us remain focused, right? So we've said yes to things and we realize that's the wrong thing. And I think what I've learned is you make a mistake, it's okay. It's okay to backtrack. There's no pride lost. Yes, you might have a bit of ego in your face, and that's okay. But if we make a mistake, learn from it, and move on. If you need to backtrack. But I think once we've learned from something, and I'll give you an example. We opened a cafe in Nanyuki in 2020, and then we closed it a year later. And that was such a romanticized, I'm like, oh my God, we're a specialty coffee roastery in a country of origin. Let's go and open a coffee shop in a region of origin. Like, let's get really granular. Yeah, but there aren't enough people who are willing to pay 350 shillings for a coffee in that market. There just weren't physically enough of them. So it's a nice romanticized view for me and my friends and people in the coffee industry. When I'm going to go source coffee, I can go and have a nice coffee. But it just didn't make commercial sense. And it was a big learning for us because we were trying to run this little cafe in Nanyuki. This is before the roads were really good. It would take hours to get there. And what we learned from that is actually, it doesn't make sense for us to try and operate outside of Nairobi, within Kenya. And what we said is actually, there's great restaurants, there's great cafes, there's great places. Let's work with them. So now people come to us, someone came to us and say, like, hey, can you open a coffee shop at my mall in Kilifi? We're like, no, but if you want to open one, we're happy to supply you with equipment. We're happy to get you the right coffee. We're happy to train your guys so you can serve incredible coffee, but that's not one for us.
It's very funny. I was flying out of Air Kenya at the airport, and the Browns runs the coffee shop at the Air Kenya terminal.
Yeah.
And I took a sip of the coffee and I said, this is Spring Valley coffee, isn't it? And they're like, yes, it's Spring Valley coffee. So it was quite interesting because then I thought that you were also running and came to discover it was a Browns.
It was Browns, but we've actually just taken that over from them. So we're now running that. As of the 1st of November, we're running that location. It just made sense. They're very good friends of ours. We've been in business, kind of had relation for a long time. It made sense because we already had a location at Safari Link. They're both right next to each other. So we're actually now running that.
So look at you now. You're an airport hospitality provider, Ritesh, unwillingly and unwittingly.
Unwillingly.
Let me turn this a little bit to something that you're very, very passionate about, and that you live multi-generationally. Your parents live with you under the same roof, and you remember you telling us that it was a non-negotiable for you. That whoever you're going to marry, please understand, I must live with my parents. That's my culture. Now, in a country and a generation that's racing to move out, and this whole living single thing has been significantly glorified, you chose the opposite. Having lived and continue to live in a multi-generational home, does anything transfer from home to the boardroom? I remember you said that your partner was very supportive, but what about from your parents and living with them? Do you see any transfer?
Really interesting question. I wasn't expecting that. I do. I think I see it in different ways. I think one is a lot of the hospitality that we bring to our guests, we also bring to our staff, and that translates back to delight everyone. We don't just delight our customers. So when somebody at Spring Valley, if a staff member orders a coffee, they will get it served in the same ceramic cup in the same way that a customer would. Even though they're not paying for that coffee, anytime a supplier delivers to Spring Valley, to our offices here, but to any of our cafes. So we use bio milk. If the bio milk driver comes in to deliver milk, we will make him a cup of coffee. That is the inherent hospitality that is in our business. That comes from my mom and from my grandmother. So you talk about it, how does it filter into the business? I mean, if you come into our cafes, we serve a small biscuit with all of our coffees. Yes. My dog's name is Biscuit, but that original recipe is my grandmother's old recipe, slightly tweaked to make it more appropriate for coffee, but slightly tweaked. But so those are the things that are not in the boardroom, that's filtered directly into the business. With my leadership team today, whenever I have a monthly lunch with everybody on my management team, we do that at my house. We walk to my house and my mom makes us lunch and we have lunch at my home. But what's come into the boardroom is my parents, having just been older, having experienced many things in life, having lived on multiple continents, is patience. Is that, for me, because I'm very much a go, go, go. And they're like, hey, slow down a bit, right? Like, take the time to slow down, take the time to recharge. I think because they've been on this entire journey with me from the time that I left for university to where I am today. And of course, before, is just they've seen me grow and evolve. They notice, as does my wife, when I'm getting out of kilter, right? If I'm working too hard, if I'm moving too fast, if I'm making mistakes, not necessarily at work, but even at home on little things. But I think what's filtered in from home into work for me is actually, my dad always has the saying. He's like, you look at your hand, you have 5 fingers, they're all a different size. That means like people, everyone's different, but everybody has a function. It's like something our parents would say, that they do say, but actually it makes a lot of sense, right? And I look at our roastery, we have 15 people working in here, and some people are better someone's better at roasting, somebody's better at packing, somebody's better at filling the boxes. But you need all of those people to work together to make that thing work. And I think some of those things, but for me, it's really just grounding. And I think it forces me to slow down a little bit.
One thing that's come across even when we met before is just how passionate you are about the people who work for you. And one of the things that gave you great pride when you're talking about the people who've grown from just basic packers or cleaners. Could you talk a little bit about that? How investing in people who are around you, what it does for you?
I think we all have a responsibility, right? Especially those of us that come from opportunities where we had a chance to study, to work, maybe at international exposure. If we look at kind of where unemployment rates in our country, we have a responsibility to create opportunities for people. All of us, every single person does. And I think as a culture, as Kenyans, we are good at it, right? One person in a family works. They're supporting many people around them, right? We said, literally, it takes a village to raise people.
The average for Kenya, they say, is 5, that every one person you employ is taking care of a minimum of 5 people.
And for us, I always say, to the extent we can develop people internally, we will. And we have. And there's a few stories that I love to tell. And some people, by the way, stayed in the same exact job, like our head roaster today. Mohammed, Fred, and Godwin, the 3 original roasters. They've been at the business they were here before I got here. They've been the 3 of the 4 names you see on the back of the bag.
Yes, I saw that. This is roasted by Fred Odera.
Yeah, so Fred has been here for 16 years, as is Mohammed, as is Godwin, right? And for me, those guys are still roasters. But they love their craft. They care about what they do. They don't necessarily need to seek corporate growth to become the head of the roastery and then to become this. They're like, we love what we do. We're proud of our craft and our skill, and some of that artisan skill that is gone, right? That people don't celebrate anymore. It is an art, and I think some people have stayed, but then other people have grown. I give the example of Sharon. Sharon Adebe is one of our roasters. She's our first female roaster. We're so proud of her. Sharon started with us as our staff cook. She used to be in the kitchen over there, literally making lunch for everybody. She would make lunch for everybody, and that was her thing. And then when she finished early in the morning, because she was very efficient, she kind of milling around, and we started getting busier. So she started helping packing, and then she'd help with packing. And then when the packing was done, she'd kind of just peer over Mohammed or Fred's shoulder and be like, "Hey, what are you doing? I'm learning." She's one of our roasters today. So she went from being the staff cook to being the roaster.
How did you give her that chance? What made you think that she might be able to do it? Because roasting is fairly technical. I want to believe.
So I'll be honest. It wasn't me who gave her the chance. When we were growing, we said, hey, we need to hire another roaster. So I'm having a conversation with the roasting team. I'm having a conversation with HR. And I'm like, we need to hire a roaster. And I'm like, let's do a JD. And I'm just like, I'm moving. And then Mohammed goes, he's like, Ritesh. He goes, no, I have somebody. I'm like, oh, you know somebody? He goes, yeah, sure, he works here. So Mohammed's like, we didn't know that she'd been doing all of this. We learned after the fact. So he's like, she's been like learning, she's been packing, she's been roasting. So let her be the roaster. You just go hire a new cook. So he basically gave me, Mohammed said to me, Ritesh, go and find a new cook. So then she became the roaster on Monday and we had to go and find a new cook. So it wasn't me who gave her the opportunity. Wow. It was the team that said, hold on, we see potential in this person and let's do that.
Wow. That is an amazing story. And it's not only Sharon. I think there was the lady who was doing all your, to see you, Ritesh, your assistant has an assistant who has an assistant who gave us the time.
No, Jane, Jane joined us. She used to work literally in an M-Pesa shop next to our original cafe. And one day stopped me and said, if you ever have an opening, this years ago, if you ever have an opening, I would just love to come work for you. And she joined us as one of I call it our first graduate intake of 4 people. And she was a merchandiser. She was stacking supermarket shelves. That's what she started doing. And today she's our marketing person in-house. Wow. So we've seen people grow. I mean, we've had baristas grow into be roastery managers. We've had cleaners or assistants. I mean, Oma, who was here earlier, helping us, he's our quality control assistant, right? And some people came with no experience, but they've demonstrated a craft and a care, a real understanding of coffee, and a real care for what we do.
Yeah, so you clearly not only hire but also promote for attitude, less skills and more.
We hire and fire for culture.
Okay.
We promote for attitude, but what we're also learning as we're going quickly is sometimes and in some roles we need people that have just done it before, because sometimes you don't have the luxury of time of saying, well, by the time this person gets 10 years of experience. So like, for example, Nico, our head of coffee, has over 20 years of experience in coffee, has lived in multiple places. He moved back a couple of months ago to head up coffee at Spring Valley. An amazing homecoming for him, for somebody who started his career at Dorman's over 20 years ago, but he's just done it before. And sometimes we need people that have done it before.
Yeah. So then you've actually helped me move to the next set of questions, which is something that you like to do. You always like to ask people 3 questions when you interview them. So I'm going to flip those 3 questions onto you, which is, tell me something that's not on your CV, Ritesh.
That's not on my CV.
Mm-hmm.
I'm obsessed by a handful of things, and I can be quite obsessive. I mean, coffee is obviously one of them, but now it's a business, so I'm going to ignore that. I'm obsessed with gelato and ice cream. I'm absolutely obsessed. I love it. I still love pizza as a product. I'm absolutely obsessed with dogs. I love my dog. She comes everywhere with me. My choice of restaurant is often, can I take my dog or not?
The first time I met you, in fact, I didn't see it. You had a little dog that was hidden, right?
That was tucked in. Yeah. So my dog is usually, now we have a very good health and safety person. Faith will not let her into the roastery, which is very good. But Biscuit is usually, she comes to work every morning, does her rounds outside with everybody before she goes. And I love running. So
you've done some marathons.
I've done a couple. I've done London and Amsterdam, and I'll be doing Valencia later on this year.
What do you do? 21K? 42?
No, full 42.
Yeah. All right. Where do you want to be in 5 years?
Really good question. If you'd asked me this 3 years ago, I said we want to be, we literally want to take the brand international. The question now, where do we want to be in 5 years? We actually want to become a recognizable brand that's truly representing Kenya and perhaps even more widely Africa on the coffee scene.
And you've done a good job. You've already started in London. And in London, it's just a coffee shop, so no food.
So in London, it's a coffee shop. It's split on 2 floors. So it's the ground floor, and then it's in an old building. It's a street called Camden Passage, which is in Islington, just outside of Angel Tube Station. The street was built in 1707. The building is over 100 years old. It used to be an old mews houses, and we're split on 2 floors, which is really interesting. You walk in, there's a coffee shop. On the same floor where we have some seating, we have a kind of a Kenyan retail space, or actually an African retail space. We've taken some of the most incredible makers on the continent and taken them with us, many of them from Kenya. So for example, our friends at Sandstorm have a shelf with their product. people like Kangaroo, people like Grounded, people like Cinnabar Green. So people like Ndoro from Zimbabwe. We really work with kind of relatively established brands, but then also like our GM in the UK, she has a great basket. She's originally from Kenya. There's an amazing basket maker next to our house here. So we have amazing baskets from that person. We have them on sale. So we said, if we get to go to the UK, everybody who's been on our journey with us, we're taking them with us. And all of those brands have some connection to us. We use their products. We gift their products. We share space with them. So for us, we've taken them on the journey with us. And then on the walls in London, like we've done here. So every one of our cafes here showcases a different artist. And we've taken some of those artists with us to London. So on the walls, you're kind of got, beautiful Kenyan art, and gives them a platform to also showcase and sell their art there. And then downstairs, we have a bit more seating, but we've also created a beautiful technical coffee tasting room, not too dissimilar to this, where you can technically cup coffees, taste coffees. There's a screen because obviously they're very far away from the farms. So we can show them what happens on a farm. We can show people what happens at a mill. So they really feel part of that journey.
Very experiential, sounds like.
Yeah, but we've used the same materials there in building the store that we use in our shops here.
Okay. Let me ask you the last question that you like to ask people who are interviewing you, who you are interviewing. Any questions for me?
Ooh.
That was put in here by the person who puts together these questions. She's being very cheeky when she's doing that. This is a point where you say, no, actually, I'm fine.
No, I do have a question. You obviously are telling my story today, but I've seen your career and your success evolve over many years. From being, and literally when you message me, I'm like, the famous Carol wants to talk to me. I'm like,
look at Ritesh. This is the famous Ritesh.
No, and I'm curious as to like what prompted the shift for you.
There've been several shifts,
but the most recent one.
It's kind of like what you said about getting the older you get, the more you want to focus on fewer things and more impactful things. So the most recent one, which is, I've done a lot of board work over the last 15 years, but the most recent one is now really focusing on SMEs, on the Ritesh Doshis, the ones who are building businesses quietly and making a huge impact. How do we ensure it doesn't die with the founders? How do we ensure that it goes to the next generation? And the space I play in is governance. And how do I ensure that this level of businesses get to appreciate governance and the connection between legacy and governance? And so that's really means a lot to me. So actually my last, now you've actually got me asking you a question, which is, and don't answer it here, is what are your plans for when you get burnout? Because you're building a business and it's growing and growing. It's crossing the seas now, not just crossing the borders. How does that get sustained? How do you corporatize this? Because right now it's still very founder driven.
Well, it's really interesting. We've tried to professionalize in many ways, right? Like, and for example, like we have systems for things now. I'm now not allowed to do all of what I want. I still get away with a couple of things. Like I wanted an ice cream machine. I got an ice cream machine, much to everybody's like, why do we have an ice cream machine? Because I love soft serve. As I said, I'm obsessed with it. But I think there's a balance, and I think there's a fine balance because, Naked Pizza was very much about me. And I think I didn't want Spring Valley to be about me intentionally from the beginning. That's why the bags have the names of the producers. That's why the bags have the names of the roasters. Yeah. The business is, and what's interesting is the original Spring Valley location, people know me because I live around here and I've been a customer for a long time. Some of our other cafes, when I go to our cafe in Lavington, I go to our cafe in Karen, it's nice for me to just go and be there like a customer because people don't know who I am. And so I think we've achieved some of that, but my fear becomes when you become too institutional, then the institution becomes bureaucratic. You don't change fast enough. And we actually hit that point not that long ago. It got to a point where like these 10 cafes, you have these management structures, everything's very formal. And when you lose connection with your people, not me, but even our team, when you lose connection with our guests, it stops being fun. And I realized when I stopped having fun, so I'm like, guys, it's how do we replicate the culture that yes, we have to have controls, of course. There has to be controls, there has to be rules. All of those things, unfortunately, Biscuit can't come into the roastery anymore. And that's a good reason. But we shouldn't lose the soul of who we are. We shouldn't lose the joy of who we are. Like, and I'll give you an example. It's a small thing, but it's actually a big thing. It's like somebody comes in and like, if something happens, a manager has to approve, I gave you a free coffee. We're like, everybody here is empowered. And that's, for me, it's about the empowerment. If you come in and you come in every single day. So we don't do loyalty. We intentionally do not have a loyalty program. And people are like, oh, why? But I come 10 times a week. And we say, you might come 10 times a week. And our average customer comes out at 5.5 times a week, which is amazing. But what we say is, no, our team is empowered to say, hey, Carol comes in she comes in 5 times a week during the week to have her coffee on the way to work. But when she comes in on a Saturday, you know what? With her family or with her friends, I'm going to say, you know what? Your coffees are on us. Your donuts are. So people are empowered to
make that call.
And for me, that's how we inculcate culture. And that's what's important to me. So we will scale, we will continue to, and I'll come back to the burnout question, but I don't want it to become too institutional because then it feels very corporate. And I left the corporate world and I had amazing corporate jobs and I learned a lot, but I hated that soullessness of being in corporate, in that corporate world. So it's important that we find that balance, and it is a balance, and it's hard. And as we've grown, we're over 120 people now, right? 126 people, I think, as of yesterday. Across 11 sites, 2 countries. That's hard. Yeah. But how do we not lose that DNA? How do we not lose that culture? So yes, we can have a big fat rule book, and which I think we do for some things now. But I'm like, the simple thing is to do the right thing, right? Like, would you do that if it was your own business? Would you do that if it was your own money? Would you do that if you were serving some member of your family? It's like, it doesn't have to be complicated, right?
So keeping an entrepreneurial spirit within the team.
Yeah. And especially with the leadership team. And many of our leadership teams started here as very junior people. And, of a management team of 7, I mean, I'd say over half of them literally started right at the bottom of our business and have worked their way up. And I'm incredibly proud of them. Okay. So
we're now coming to the end. And at the end of our podcast, we always ask something called nitpicks on the quick. And it's a series of questions.
Okay.
It'll be quick fire. Tell me what comes to mind, all right? Don't overthink it.
Okay.
First question. Are you an early riser or sleep in on weekends?
Early riser.
You're a marathoner. Why am I not supposed to hear that? Do you prefer to text or phone call?
Depends on who it is.
Okay, since you always text me, I guess I get that. All right, cooking a meal or ordering takeout?
Cooking a meal.
What do you cook?
Depends. I really enjoy cooking. Mexican food. I love making anything from scratch. I'd say Mexican is probably my favorite, given that I spent a lot of my youth in Southern California. So,
all right. Yeah. Mountains or the beach?
I want to be the guy that says mountains, but I'm going to say the beach.
Travel back in time or fast forward your life?
Back in time.
Where would you go?
I would go back to when life was simpler, when I was growing up, when I was young, right? Because I just feel life is so fast today with technology. I literally remember these streets were not paved. I remember cycling with my best friend. Still my best friend today. We would cycle around these neighborhoods. And there was no like, what time are you coming home? Where's it going? And now I'm like, life is just a lot slower.
Favorite Kenyan dish?
Ooh, that is a tough one. Chapati.
One thing you always carry with you apart from biscuit?
One thing I always carry with me, you're gonna laugh. I carry $100 bill with me. So a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, he's South African, a guy called Dylan, very dear friend of mine. We don't see each other nearly enough. And a few years ago, he had come up and he was doing some coaching for our team, just as a favor to me as we were going through transition. And him and I had dinner. He was staying at my house. And we had dinner. And he said, he's like, you're at this interesting inflection point. And someone taught him this, and he taught it to me. He said, when you have $100 in your wallet in a pocket you never use, there's this subconscious thing of having enough. There's a subconscious thing of abundance. And when you have that abundance and you're carrying abundance around with you, then you behave in a way that's abundant. You treat life like abundance. And that was, I want to say in 2019 or 2020, I can't even remember. It's funny because I messaged him about this just a few days ago. I messaged, I said, Dylan, I still carry this thing. It's still in my wallet. So I literally have, and why $100? It's because it was the largest note available of any major currency. So it was literally that. So after he told me, I went out that day, I went to a Forex bureau, I got $100 and I folded it and it's been in my wallet ever since.
Wow. What's your go-to stress reliever?
It oscillates between running and meditating.
Not the average person is going to say they run to relieve stress. If anything, for a lot of people, just the thought of running brings on stress.
But you know why? It's because it's the only time in my day that I have to myself. And as much as I love my family, love my parents, love my wife, love my dog, everyone's in a home together. The minute I come to work, there's 126 people that need some of my time. So when I run, I don't carry a phone. I do not take my phone. I run for many years. I would run a marathon without a phone. I take my watch. I have headphones for music. It is the one time in the day that I get to myself. So for me, that's how I burn off my stress.
Most inspiring place you visited?
Ooh, that's a tough one. It is a very tough one. Most inspiring place I have visited. Immediately, my gut reaction goes to New York, just because of the energy that the city has. That city has just boundless amounts of energy and can-do attitude. And perhaps because it was the first place I ever went on a business trip when I was 20 years old. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And you literally feel like I can do anything.
Read the book or watch a movie?
Read the book.
What are you reading right now?
What am I reading right now? I'm reading a couple of things. So I read kind of 3 different things at a time. So I have a daily read every day in the morning. And that's just Ryan Holiday's kind of, everyday reading. The book I'm reading in the evening at the moment is, the name will escape me, I'll come back to you with it, but it's about how I grew a coffee business by an Irish guy called, I want to say Ian Clinic, who was the Irish barista champion many years ago. And he started with a little coffee shop, and I got to meet him. I was in London recently. I got to meet him. He gave me a copy of his book. And I'm just enjoying that, how somebody has built something different, and super raw, super open about the missteps, the mistakes. And I like the authenticity.
Ritesh, you've been a great guest. I've had some excellent Elgon coffee. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. That, folks, was Ritesh Doshi, a man who has spent a career asking, what's the worst that could happen? And then doing the thing anyway. He didn't want to be in an extractive industry. He wanted to walk his dogs in the evening, a short commute, to live well, to actually enjoy what he does. So he socially surrounded himself with people who ask the hard questions that nobody wants to answer, and is building a coffee empire on 3 rules. Do the right thing, make incredible coffee, delight everyone. He stands on the shoulders of giants, and what filtered in from home to work? Patience, great customer service, learned at his mother's and grandmother's table. The grounding to remember that every person who walks in is different, and every cup of coffee comes with a biscuit, just like his dog's name. A man quietly raising the standard for the rest of us. Consider me challenged. Thanks for watching the Nitpicker podcast, where we share interesting stories about interesting people doing interesting things. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe.